Okay, we will call the March 14th, 2022 County Council meeting to order. Roll call.
Jim Ison.
Here.
Melinda Christopher.
Here.
Pete Ketchum.
Here.
Jonathan Myers.
Here.
Rob Henderson.
Here.
John Myers.
Here.
Ron Deere.
Here. Okay. Pete, would you lead us in invocation?
Sure.
Please?
If we could all take a moment to pray, please. Dear God, our Father in heaven, we pray for thy presence at this meeting. We pray that that will influence this council to listen to and make good decisions as we hear the presentations from our county employees, elected officials, department heads. We pray that we're able to listen and make good decisions with thy help. We pray for our first responders, our military. We pray for the people of Ukraine. Pray for that thou will protect them, and we pray for a speedy end to the war in Ukraine. We pray for these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. You would all stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is approval of tonight's agenda. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve tonight's agenda as presented.
Second. Sorry, there is one modification. We'll be pulling item B1 off. The minutes aren't ready yet. They will be added to the April agenda.
Throw out my prior motion and move to approve the agenda as presented and amended by Jim's comments.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion by Rob, second by Melinda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Public comments. This is the time set forth for comments from the audience. If anyone has anything they'd like to address the council online or live, please step to the podium. Online. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Item B, routine matters, the consent agenda. This is a routine matters that we take in one single motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
A motion by John T, a second by John Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Salary ordinance amendments, additional appropriations, reductions, and transfers. First up is drug-free Johnson County.
Hi, I'm Michelle McMahon, the coordinator with Drug Free Johnson County here tonight.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. So what we are asking for this month is all of our grants, all of our funding to be allocated for the year. We have convened a grants committee. We had some excellent applications this year. Unfortunately, you're never able to fund everything, but I'm really excited that we had some new applicants this year doing some really interesting and amazing work in our community. As you know, drug abuse, substance abuse, domestic violence, mental health, all of those things are big issues, especially with the pandemic. And so being able to do anything to help out with this on the prevention or intervention or treatment side is great. It's really, really wonderful. So we are asking for each of our grantees, the funded categories overall to be approved, and then specific amounts. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have regarding our request.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's regarding your letter, Michelle. Item 6, the Johnson County Juvenile Probation, the 3,883.52.
Yes.
It's not listed on the agenda.
That's not good. I missed that. I think maybe it was just left off.
It's on the back, John.
Yeah,
It's on the back
It
of her letter. Oh,
Yeah.
is it on the back of this? No, I don't think it's on the agenda though.
Oh,
the request,
It's included in.
Oh, good. Okay. So
I
it's
didn't
just
hear what-
broken out.
so I guess the only issue that I do see is in prevention education, we're actually asking for $32,525.13. That additional $1,000 is being allocated to Brave backers. They don't necessarily meet the criteria as a normal grantee for us, but they are putting together a post-prom event, and they are actually reaching every one of their high school students for some safe driving awareness prior to prom and so that number in my request for the total for prevention education was $32,535.13. So that is not correct on your agenda, but it should be correct, the total on your request.
Amy, can we rectify that with on the agenda in the form of a motion and an additional dollar amount for that line item?
An additional.
Michelle, did you catch that?
I did not hear her. I'm sorry.
So the difference in that prevention education dollar amount that you just described, the $1,000 basically needs to be added next month. It can't go tonight since that dollar amount was not advertised.
Okay, we can do that. I can put in something for next month.
Thank you. And I think it's actually the dollar amount for prevention education on the letter to us is $32,535.13. The advertised amount is $31,525.13. So it should be $1,010 next month if that's what you're aiming for.
Yeah, I believe so. So I will, fix that, or we'll get that for next month then.
Funds usually divided equally between the three.
Yeah, it's typically divided equally, but as long as we meet the criteria, the state statutory requirement of 25% minimum of our total operating budget per category, we were just adding the $1,000 to that prevention category because our board had already approved it prior to all of our grant applications coming in, because it wasn't a previous request, it was an early request, and then we were just going to do it all together. So it should be $1,000 an additional, but if we need to come back, that's okay.
I think I guess we could calculate it real quick. Is this a calculation error, or should it truly be 32,535 instead of 525? Because the others are all 525.
I believe it should be 525, but an additional $1,000 because they were asking for
Okay.
$1,000. Unless we just had an extra $10 we put in there for something else. I don't remember, but I believe it should be just an even $1,000 more.
So all the corrections are to be done next month, then, correct?
Rob's computing over here.
So under the prevention education grouping, items 1 through 7, those total $32,525.13.
Yes. So the 10, the 3 instead of the 5 and the 35, it should have been 25, and I apologize. That is my error. On the request, we did have an additional $1,000 that we were allocating into prevention.
I'll motion to approve item C1 as advertised with the recommendation that it be cleaned up next month for any remaining dollars.
Second.
A motion by Rob, a second by John Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next up is adult probation.
Hi, I'm Angela Morris, Chief Probation Officer. So do you want to just take 2 and 3? You want to talk about 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, or?
Are they all fee funds? We were-
Correct. On number 2, the requests I'm making are yes, fee funds. And then 4, 5, and 6 are reimbursements for personnel expenses.
Why don't we take? Well, we take 2 and 3 separately and then combine 4, 5, and 6. Council good with that?
I'm good with that.
So Angela, remind me, this is that arrangement where whatever's left over at the end of the year is brought back, reimbursed to the general fund, correct?
Yes, so those 3 accounts, I zero those out. I'm supposed to do it twice a year. We did this in April, and then our clerical error, it got approved at council, but then my office didn't cut the check. I forgot we had to cut an actual check to go back to the county. So that's explained in the letter that came with the numbers.
Understood. Now on the 5,000 and the 10,000, is that going to be a yearly thing, or is it just going to roll over into the general fund?
It's not yearly, and it will be included in their salary next year.
Under the general fund?
Yes.
Now is trying to understand item 3. The funding is from fee-based, but isn't the position under our position qualifications?
Number 3.
Yeah.
Just the
Field office
title
supervisor.
change. Those are just title
Can-
changes.
Ron, I think we agreed to take 2 and 3 separately, so let's get through 2 and then we'll do 3 separately. I don't want to get these
Okay.
2 confused.
That was my mistake. I thought,
Which 2 and 3 you talking
Number 2
about? Number 3.
and number 3.
On the
Yeah, that's what
agenda-
I'm asking about.
On the agenda, not the
Oh,
letter.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
okay.
All right, so same question on number 2, which is on your letter. These positions, field officer, supervisor, new, and assistant chief probation officer. We talk about the right one now, number 2.
Yes.
These are 2 existing positions, and I'm asking for title changes, and then supervisor bumps. And the 2101 is a fee-based fund.
Okay. But my question is, it's a title change. Has that title change been to Irwin and reviewed and suggested what the new?
So the assistant chief probation officer is, that was already part of the consulting committee's recommendation. And then we're making one of our field officers a supervisor.
Ron, I don't think the salary study applies to probation officers because their salaries are set by state statute.
How many field
Didn't know
officers
that.
do you have?
Probation has one full-time field officer and one part-time field officer.
So that the increases for those positions are increasing them to state required salaries.
The assistant chief probation officer, yes. The field officer is not a state required salary.
So my same set of questions, correct me, Jim, if I'm wrong here. So the field officer supervisor is an existing,
The field officer is an existing position with the court services agreement that was approved by the commissioners this morning. For lack of a better word, I've inherited community corrections also.
right, I'm aware of
And
that.
the sheriff and I needed a supervisor over all field officers. So the existing field officer at probation, we have promoted him to a supervisor and wanted to change that title today.
Okay, where did the 5,000 come from is what I'm getting at.
The 2101 is a fee-based account. The 5,000 is what probation officers get when they're supervisors. So we applied that to the field officer also. That was not, this is not an approved, this is not an approved position by the consulting company.
So basically, I think what's being said is this person's accepting more responsibility and the $5,000 is essentially a raise for those added responsibilities.
And then it's a state recommended dollar amount for that.
Well, that's
position.
only for
Just
the,
for probation officers.
Only for the chief.
But we
for
use
the
that, since it's the same department, that's the criteria I use to,
So are other field officer supervisors at the same rate or what this position is?
I'm not sure there aren't any others in the county.
He's the only one.
How many people does this supervisor supervise?
Four full-time positions and two half part-time positions.
And your regular part-time is in there, out of the general fund, right?
Our regular part-time is out of we have a alcohol and drug supplemental fund, and then this one we're requesting to be out of the probation user fee fund.
And next year at budget time, or budget time this year for next year, will that be in the general fund or?
It can, or it can stay in the supplemental.
And where did the $30 amount come from on that?
That's the hourly, the probation officer that we're wanting to, that is going to part-time. That's why we're having a probation officer that's gonna be working part-time for us. And so that is a state mandated salary. So I took that hourly rate. That's a little less than $30 an hour.
I just want to ask a question. Why have you guys decided to create these positions?
With the new court services agreement that came up with the Community Corrections Advisory Board and the judges and the commissioners this morning, that they voted on to create a court services, a unified system. I had to have somebody in at the assistant chief spot over at adult, and then the field officers, the sheriff wanted a supervisor over them.
So John Key and I sit on the Community Corrections Advisory Board. As you received an email probably about 3 weeks ago, Jason Cranny, the supervisor, resigned. And we voted to restructure it, to put it under the authority of probation. So now she has inherited a whole new department. So that's why that restructuring is going on.
And we're going to receive a better presentation at the end of the meeting tonight.
It will be better than this, yes.
Not, well, I'm not, I mean, more complete.
Wow,
All of
Ron.
that.
I'm
All
more
of it.
complete. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I didn't know how much to go into all that.
Well,
but-
we're acting on something that we're
Correct.
not going to hear about until later in the meeting is my point.
And it will be better. That's okay.
Something that's in the works.
More complete.
Okay, so for item 2, are we prepared to make a motion or is there further discussion?
So next year automatically, just on those two positions, we're looking at a $15,000 increase.
In the general fund or?
Yes.
Unless you want me to keep it in the supplemental.
Well, I think the logic is if you increase the supplemental, you're at the end of the year taking away from the general. Is that kind of that's
I
the
don't
implied
reimburse
logic.
out of the 2101 ever. That fund doesn't get reimbursed back into the county because all of our expenses come out of that.
Okay.
I see what you're saying, but for that particular fund, not necessarily.
Is that fund able to absorb the 15,000 on a futuristic outlook?
Or
Yes.
the 30,000, the part-time combined.
Correct, yeah, 30.
Correct. That's why we asked for them to come out of the fee-based fund.
Right, for now, but I asked earlier if that was going to fall under the general fund next year, and you said yes.
Unless you want me to keep it in the supplemental.
I prefer that. If it's-
Can it be decided at the time of budget?
I want to commit.
Hmm?
I'd like to have a commitment. Can you give me more information?
No, I mean,
Okay.
So I think what's being asked is for your commitment that you won't come back to us asking for this out of the general fund.
we'll keep it in the supplemental.
I'm good with that.
Ready for a motion?
Go with that.
I am ready for motion.
Motion to approve item 2, 2101. Sub A, part-time for $15,000. Sub B for part-time request of $30 per hour. Sub C, $5,000 retro to 2/22/22. And sub D for $10,000 retro to 2/14/22. Did I get that right?
And this will stay in the
And
2201.
per Angela, it'll stay in the 2101.
Sounds right.
Second.
A motion by John T, second by John Ed. All those in favor signify by saying aye,
Aye.
and I abstain. Motion passes. Number 3,
These are 2 title changes that coincide with C and D that you just approved.
I am.
Motion to approve item 3 as presented.
Second.
Motion by John T, a second by John Ed. All those in favor signify by saying aye,
Aye.
and I abstain. Motion carries. Four, 5, and 6. These are all just reimbursements, correct?
Correct.
Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve item 4, 5, and 6 reimbursement for personal expenses as presented.
Second.
Motion by John T, a second by Pete. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstain.
Cut the check this time.
Yep. we will
You
check.
cut the check this time.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next up is the surveyor.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, for the record, Greg Cantwell, Johnson County Surveyor. Per your request, we're back again this month with an amended request. Our request tonight is for $166,000 for the Drainage Board GDI fund. Last month, we had two requests. Kevin Walls, Commissioner and Drainage Board member, took it to the ARPA, and we were able to get half of the funding we requested. So we amended this one, and we've come back.
And this is considered a loan.
The GDI is a unique fund. Think of it as the Drainage Board's bank. Each watershed, each ditch has its own account. And if a project comes along that is beyond the financial means within that account, it can reach into this GDI bucket and pull the necessary funds needed to complete that project. And then as assessments come in that following year, GDI is paid back first, and then the money goes back to the fund. You can kind of think of the GDI fund as a good old dog. If you open the door at night, that good old dog will go out and do its business, but eventually it's going to come back home. And that's what the GDI fund does. It supports those smaller accounts. But at some point, excess money in that GDI fund comes back to the council, to the general fund. So if you'll let me have it for a while, I promise I'll bring it back.
Okay, and then the Drainage Board has approved this, or did it go before the Drainage Board?
Yes, the request.
Okay.
What was last month's request?
Both of them together would be $335. 332.
Greg, it was a great presentation last month, and appreciate your patience while it went through the ARPA process. Thank you. And I would motion to approve item C7 as presented.
Second.
A motion by Rob, a second by John Ed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners. You're up. The American Rescue Plan Act.
Yeah. Good evening. Ryan Baird, Johnson County Commissioner.
Kevin Walls, Johnson County Commissioner.
As you heard from the surveyor, $166,000 of the money coming from the ARPA fund will go toward the drainways. $100,000 of that has been designated to the Drake Road building, which is a building that we're looking at to build for the health department and the coroner's office. And then 100,000 will go to the add-on. These are all design, professional services for design for the add-on to the animal shelter that's greatly needed. And then the rest of it was a roundup. Somebody did.
Technically, the commissioners approved the ordinance today authorizing the expenditure of the plus the 100 plus the 100 for a total of 366. This is advertised over, so you could just do 366.
We still got, we'll have some funds to pay out for. Our consultant.
Right.
Don't know what-
There are a few items there that,
So by approving the 400, can we do that to take care of those? Okay,
Yes.
yeah, we just save a trip.
just didn't know if it needed to be a, okay. We like easy.
A motion to approve item C8 as presented.
Second.
Motion by Rob, second by John Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
gentlemen.
you.
Veterans Affairs.
Hello, Seneca Harbin, Johnson County Veterans Affairs. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
As the letter states, we are proposing, or we're requesting that we be allotted the $29,310 to hire a full-time service officer with the start date of March 24th for a total of 19 pay periods. And I'm going to, at some time, eventually offset that requested total annual cost by deleting part-time position. I'm open to any questions that you may have.
In your letter, you wrote that this would ultimately be a savings to the county.
$32,400. Because I'll delete that whole line item of part-time and just, that won't be an expenditure anymore.
Well, are we factoring in benefits and?
That total cost was given to me as part of they did the salary study and then Barb's smarter than I am. She came up with all the math. I don't, but yeah, I think that was factoring in benefits and all the full-time, everything.
Yeah. Very rarely do you trade a part-time position for a full-time and save money.
It's
Yeah.
two part-time positions, isn't it? Don't you have
Yeah,
two
it
part-time?
actually will end up being two part-time positions. So they had a couple part-time staff members and then we deleted the need for that. And then we still got that one left. And as long as she's willing to clock in every day, I'm gonna have her. She's great. She's wonderful. But that is coming to a close rapidly. And so we're trying to stay ahead of it. And instead of hiring just anybody, a friend with a big heart, we're actually going to get a full-time service officer who can actually help and address the needs of the county. And it's going to be a good thing.
When are you thinking that the part-time positions will be eliminated?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an exact date. I was assuming it wasn't going to last through the winter, but I don't have an exact date in mind for that.
Is somebody being let go?
No, not necessarily. I don't know what to say on public stuff like this, but it's not going to last much longer. Is what
Commissioner?
I'm comfortable with saying online and all that stuff. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Brian Baird, Johnson County Commissioner. What's going on here is really something I don't think we want to really, as far as discuss publicly, but there's an employee there that's been there that was there when he came, and we're trying to work with that person to let them go as they feel it's time for them to go, and would like to continue in that manner until that time. But yes, someone can be let go if that's what the council would more approve to do this. But bringing on this new position full-time, this is an actual agent that can come in here and do forms and do interviews and do things that the person we have in that place right now can't. The the odd thing about bringing this person in is this person's willing to come in and do not only the stuff that we're doing as far as for the veterans, but they're willing to answer the phones and doing the stuff that the part-time people are doing too, which is really unusual to find in this industry. So I think what we get is the best of both worlds for less money in the long run, if those two part-time positions are totally gone. So we've done a really good job over there since the passing of Charles, and really streamlined it. And we're doing a lot more reports, doing a lot more funding than we've ever done through there. And I think this is probably going to be an addition that will be excellent for us way down the road, instead of putting a Band-Aid on something at the time right now. So. Yeah, I know it's, I know that's hard on him because he's new, but he was put into something that he didn't choose. He's just trying to work with it the best.
I think what I was going after was adding a position in the middle of the year outside of budget time, but with an explanation like that, I get it.
And the person is raring to go that's coming in on March 24th.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I'm ready.
Motion to approve 9 Veterans Affairs 1001-120.
Second.
A motion by John T, a second by John Ed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Could I add something? That's the start with pay period March 24th.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Does that need to be part of the motion?
Probably not, because all the money is there, right? And calculated at least at
Yeah,
19.
yes,
Okay.
So I think you're gonna understand. They can always start after your approval date, but it's better if it's in June.
Okay,
Thank you.
did we have any nays? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like Senator.
Nope, no worries. Next up, animal shelter.
Hello, Carrie
Hello.
Clutchy, Director, Animal Shelter.
Okay.
I'm here to hopefully get some raises for 3 of my employees. All of these employees, they're just, for what they do, especially with all the changes we have at the shelter, I've kind of given them more than even what was on their plate before. And everyone's stepping up, so I'm hoping to just give them raises that they desperately need and deserve. I did run it through the Wagner, Irwin and Shealy. That was in your packet. And with all of them, I didn't go to the maximum that they had said. So hopefully.
Terry, were these individuals,
sorry.
were these individuals employed prior to the end of last year?
One
In-
was.
Okay,
She had a different, so the deputy director is new. So
okay,
all of his, if you look at the job description, that's totally different than what it was last year.
yeah,
We hired him in right at the beginning of December, I want to say first week of December. The kennel manager, that position, she came in, it'll be a year tomorrow. And then she has since gotten her degree, her bachelor's degree, and she's working on her master's degree. The medical manager, she has been there as a kennel manager, but she's more medically inclined. She does a lot of the keeping track of different things that happen, illnesses, making sure the animals are getting the right meds. But she's the only one that's actually been employed before the start of last year.
thank you.
Jim, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
Spent extensive time reviewing these, and the recommendation from Irwin, external midpoint. And of course,
Three of us weren't on the council at that time, or two of us weren't on the council at that time. When all of you did the work. And I didn't think you took everybody to external midpoint, and I'm confused on this one. And I did do some investigating of what numbers that may have accounted for some of this. I'll explain that after you clarify what I just asked.
Well, I don't have the study in front of me right now, but typically, if there was an internal midpoint to compare the position to, that's what we used to give raises that year. If there was not an internal midpoint, for instance, elected officials, sheriff's deputies, then we look to the external for guidance. These positions, I believe, all have internal midpoints, but
Right.
I don't have it.
I've got that information. I'll start with the deputy director, and this isn't accounting for changes in duties. It's just taking the information we have. It was a civilian poll number 4. The current salary is, according to our budget book, is $42,748. But in 2021, or excuse me, that was the current, but it should have been internal midpoint, 43,623. Commissioner Baird, is this possible because of management issues? Or an error somewhere along the line, but
So it's a little bit of both, but the deputy director that was put in that position when this first was reviewed, she didn't have a law enforcement background and she didn't oversee the officers. So the deputy director that I have now, his job is basically overseeing all of animal control. He's working with the sheriff's department, things like that. So his job is completely different than what she was hired to do. She was basically a shelter manager, so she didn't have the same responsibilities that our current deputy director has.
but it was called deputy director.
It was.
Okay, well, with that information that we had, if that, it said it should have been 43,623, then I figured the 4% everybody got, and that brought that up to 44,368. And the proposal that you have here, without us having knowledge of the, I mean, we read all of this information, but it doesn't tell what it was before. It only tells what it is proposing to be now. And that is the difference between the two, if you understand where I'm coming from, which makes a major difference in the percentage increase, because it goes from, if you make those assumptions and take the 4%, take it to the correct amount that should have been, it wasn't, take the 4%, add it to it, that's 3.7 as opposed to 9.4 from where it's at now. So that was the first on this particular position. It just stumped me a little bit.
Brian Baird, Johnson County Commissioner. Just for the board's information, I know that you don't know a whole lot about what we've been through out at the shelter, but we've done a total restructure of the shelter due to some issues that we've had. And bringing in a deputy director with more responsibilities is totally different than where we were before. There was no communication or direction from the outside officers to the inside and vice versa. What this does is bring this together in a more coherent fashion to where we're working together to try to avoid some of the issues we were having at the shelter with the lack of communication between the two. So the responsibilities here have really grown for the deputy director that weren't there before. So that is the reasoning for the extra money. And also I do want to say, and I want to thank Michael for coming. He took a cut in pay to come here to take this job. And I think that's something that needs to be said because of the desire to come here and try to help us in what we were going through. Was a sacrifice for him also. So we still won't be getting him up to what he was making as just being an officer. So if I could kind of keep that in mind.
I visited there the other day and I met the gentleman and he has a law enforcement background, Ron. So I think as far, and all these people that I'm seeing here
as far as bang for our buck, they're fine people. And I think, you know, as far as putting a square peg in a square hole, you know, by a job description, I think it's hard to do sometimes. And we're dealing with people here in a transition. So I just want to say I'm in support of this.
And if you go out to the shelter and you see what's going on out there and the action that's moving and going, as Jonathan got to see, it's a busy, busy place. We're overcrowded. It's just, right now, it's really tough. And we have dedicated workers out there that are just really doing the job. You don't really know it until you go out there and you can appreciate and watch what they do. They really work hard and put in a lot of time that we probably don't even know about in helping. So,
Well, and the other point I wanted to make, when you look at the numbers on the letter that we received, those are just the numbers for the remainder part of the year. They're not the total increase. The total increase was from each one of them is in the narrative part of it, where on the right-hand side, that's for the remainder of the year. Correct?
Correct.
So I think the problem that I have with it isn't necessarily the amount, it's the timing, because later on in this meeting, we are going to have a discussion concerning a new salary study for us to use at budget time this year. So where I'm at right now personally is holding off on these raises and seeing where they come in under the new salary study and address it at budget time. Any further?
Well, Jim, what I'm suggesting as an alternative is we at least get them where they should be according to what we have already done, which would be where that position should have been based upon what knowledge we had, which on that first position, it'd be up to 44,000. And on a kennel manager, it'd be up to 37,000. And the medical manager would be, well, you
May
know,
I say something again, please? We're looking at, and I agree with you, Jim, to a certain extent, but inflation, we're already behind, and we're going to be behind in the sense of inflation. So
I don't think there's a wrong way. Either way we go. I see actually both sides to this. So,
I agree with Jim. Is there anywhere in your budget you could find some of this money?
So I could possibly, the only place that I can tell you that I could possibly pull it from is we still have one animal control officer position we haven't filled. I could pull it from there to get us through the rest of the year. We've already hired 3 new, 3 of our officers left. And so we hired 3 new. So I could possibly pull it from there to cover these raises through the end of the year. And I wouldn't have a problem doing that. We would just have to stretch our office. We're stretching them pretty thin, but I know that these 3 positions are extremely valuable. And so I think that without them, we're going to crash and burn there at the shelter. So I really want to get them to where I feel like they deserve to be. It's been a rough year at the shelter, and with our numbers are up 30% from last year, and they're going to continue to go up. So all of these people are working a massive amount of overtime, just trying to keep up with the numbers.
I think that's probably what you ought to do, in my opinion.
Are they exempt employees or non-exempt?
Non-exempt.
I'm gonna wait.
how about, I feel like I'm on negotiating. Yeah, right. The really, really important thing, if she can find the funds to help the deputy director and the kennel manager, is there any way we could look at, or the council could look at the medical manager and shelter coordinator? This is a lady that has a degree that works really, really hard, and she is very, very underpaid. And to be honest with you, I agree. If we lose her, we're looking at another train wreck, and we've had enough train wrecks out there this year. We really have. This has gotten really, really bad. We're trying to do something to make a difference out there that helps us get back to even keel. And with all the extra work that we have and the load that we have of the animals right now, it's really tough out there. If we could do maybe something like that, just to get, I want to keep this shelter coordinator, medical manager. She is really important to what we're doing out there.
I wanted to ask also, could this be ARPA funded?
Salaries.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I do have some numbers. Jonathan, you had asked me what other facilities in the area. It was not easy to get, but I did get numbers. A kennel manager at IACS or Indianapolis Animal Care Services, they make about $50,000 a year. They are bigger, so keep that in mind. The assistant director out there makes the same 50,000, and a medical manager makes 45,000. Indianapolis Humane Society, they don't have assistant director, but both their managers make 40,000. Columbus assistant director makes 58. Kennel managers make 42.
If I could say one more thing that I learned. The city of Indianapolis just passed an ordinance where anybody from outside of the county cannot take an animal to that place anymore.
Correct.
So all of our residents that were going, from Greenwood or close to the county line were taking their animals up there. Well, now that's created some of the influx here and created an increase in numbers.
Yeah, that's just, those numbers, like I said, are just the numbers for this year. That's not the salaries for next year.
So the discussion is maybe, since we just approved an additional $34,000 of ARPA, there's already $100,000 allocated, I believe, for animal shelter improvements. That potentially this approximately $18,200 could maybe be in the form of a stipend out of that money that was just salary. Okay, well, today we're just trying to find a way. All right.
And for the rest of the year, I can move that money from the line item, which is the deputy warden that we haven't hired, and move that over to cover them for the rest of the year.
How would that affect your operation?
We've been running on 2 animal control officers for like the last 3 months. So I just hired 3 more. We now have 5. I can tell you when those 3 people are trained, everyone's going to be a lot less stressed. We need to get them trained. So we hadn't planned on hiring that last one right away. One person trying to train 3 people has been a lot. I think we could easily make that work, at least for the next 6 months or so.
Summer coming on, it's gonna get busier, correct?
Yeah. Yep. It's pretty crazy right now.
My concern about the signaling of this is that we are making, maybe trying to get there, trying to find a solution, but it's not the permanent long-term solution, because it would be pending the next salary study or pending the next budget cycle or pending this, to where the employees in question might feel good about it until December, then maybe that commitment's no longer there. And that's where I'm trying to hedge that.
The commitment of the employees.
No, not the commitment from the county to maintain this level of a salary. If the salary study comes back lower, it may be the council's opinion to adjust.
So is it the same company that just did this salary?
Yeah,
I'm confident.
yeah, I understand.
My issue is just setting precedents. I do not like making salary adjustments outside of the budget hearings. That's gonna be, we've done it tonight with some really good circumstances supporting it. I don't know that a new director and
I think the difference is it's not even about being a new director. I've been there 10 years. And the way things were run before, they functioned and they functioned fine. With the numbers going up, we had to make changes. We were having different people complaining about the way animal control was being run, not going out on calls, sheriff's deputies having to go out on calls that should have been calls for us. When all this happened, the one thing I said to Brian was we have to have someone with a law enforcement background because I don't know law. I wasn't expecting at the time to be the director, but I knew whoever came in to kind of fill some of those spots had to have law enforcement. Mike brings that to the table. He's already working with the sheriff's department to get training. He's doing a lot. He's working with the prosecutor. I believe he has a meeting with the prosecutor tomorrow. We didn't have those relationships and those, and that's why I asked that for
I
him.
get it and I understand and I appreciate you fighting. I do for
Yeah, I know.
for your people and to do the right thing. So I'm not just blowing
No, I
hot
get it.
air, you know, I do, but what I don't understand is the urgency that we have to do it right now and we can't take time and due diligence to get this new study done and to see where they need to be. This is.
Well, Jim, and that's what I'm suggesting as an alternative. On that first one, I maybe went through the numbers too quickly, but it would be taking them up to where they should be based upon not this mid-level external, but where there was a failure to bring, for example, the first one was, as I said, was not brought up to where it was 42,748, should have been 43,623.
Right, but when we did this, we left it up to the department head to request a raise for each employee up to the internal midpoint. If the director at the time chose not to pay that employee that salary, I don't know that this is the appropriate time to address that.
Well, but I'm saying we're not changing any of the positions. We're just bringing them up where they should be compared to everybody else and not doing fully what you're requesting to the higher level. So I'm just trying to get parity with other employees, and the fact that the previous director didn't do it and now has been caught, then it provides the opportunity to, and I've got the numbers for the others, but you know, it's just a way to bring them up to not a new study, but where the old study said, basically.
And I understand. I'm not trying to say I don't understand. The issue is the management we had there before made some serious mistakes. And those continued until the point where it wasn't functional anymore. So it's hard to hold these people accountable to something that director did when we knew it wasn't right. Or we know now it wasn't right. But I would, and I just talked to Sheena, as you guys saw, and if we can figure out a way to get some of these funds from ARPA and do it legitimately, we'll do our best. But I still need to, I think we really need to bring the $26,000, this is criminal, what we're paying her, I'm sorry. If we could do something to get a little help bringing that up, and then we'll try to cover some if we can out of ARPA. Where the problem is if I can't get it done through ARPA, then everything I've just said to you, I'm hurting somebody. But if we could at least get that one up, I think we can live with the other positions and trying to figure out a different way, either through part-time for the time of not hiring the officer or something. But that $11,000 is that's just wrong.
And the kennel manager, the numbers on it would be brought up to 37,184, which is a 14% increase. And that's their current salary of 31 to, and the study said it should have been 35,754, and then a 4% increase for this year brings that one up to 37,184, which isn't far from your 39.
Correct.
So I mean, it makes it equitable to what other positions received, and the mistake of, it corrects the mistake without going over and above where everybody else has been granted. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I do.
And you do have 4 of the ARPA committee members here, so I
Yeah.
think they're all listening to this, and I think, maybe their understanding of what's going on will help us to maybe get this funded as much as we can from those ARPA funds.
So the medical manager, that's a full-time position, correct?
Yeah, and
Yeah, she's got a
again,
back-
at $26,000, that is just,
I personally would be willing to compromise that because I agree. I don't know how we're getting anyone to work full-time for 26,000.
she's a very dedicated lady, and like I said, if you saw her work and what she does, it's amazing.
I don't think any of us really have a problem with these numbers. It's the timing of it for me. I can only speak for me, but for me.
I agree.
And I don't like this any more than anybody, but I just know what's going on out there. And that's why I said, if Sheena can figure out a way for us to do what we need to do, we'll do everything we can.
Yeah.
And we have an ARPA meeting on Wednesday.
And by all means, if we do this tonight and bring her up to 35,100, that study comes out and it shows that she needs to be making more, bring it
I don't know what happened.
before us at budget time. More than willing to pay people what they need to be paid.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to table this for 2 meetings. Would that work for you?
I can hear you, John. What'd you say?
Well, I want to,
Table it for 2 meetings.
What's your reasoning?
because we can get more information about from Wagner and Steele.
Well, she
I
made the,
don't, I can pretty well guarantee you that that coordinator, medical manager is going to be low even with the new study at that point. Now, the other 2, I can't tell you, but the 26,000, I think that.
Well, I'll rescind my motion.
well,
I'd
and,
hate to
and,
see that wait too much.
and your point was Irwin is already, I disagree that it should be midpoint, but Irwin has already factored the positions. So we've got all their analysis. What we don't have, what Jim was talking about is our overall external, I mean, it's our overall salary study. But they did an analysis of the position. And the question I had is taking it to external midpoint and their suggestion as opposed to just taking them where they should be based upon everything that's happened. So he's already done the study, so I'm not sure what delaying it 2 meetings would be to.
He's rescinded that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's hard to hear you down here.
And, yeah, we need to try to do as much as we can through the ARPA funds. And I understand that. And yeah, I mean, if we get this salary approved for the medical manager and then use the funds out of the person we haven't hired for the rest of it for now. And if we can get that from ARPA funds, then we can always come back and say, hey, we got it. We're okay for now until budget time. I just hate to see this lady go for 2 more months with being paid the way she's being
I
paid.
think we probably ought to make the exception for her position.
How long has she been an employee?
She's been on and off for, I want to say 5 years. She started as part-time kennel staff. She came back as a kennel manager and left. She wanted to do more hands-on with dogs, so she started doing training with different organizations. She then came back last year as she filled that shelter coordinator because our shelter coordinator with COVID quit. So we brought her in and she started trying to get fosters and different things going. She got her degree at IU, worked full-time and went to school full-time. She just graduated in December. And now she's working for us full-time and doing her master's degree.
So I've yet given my opinion on the timing of this, and I agree with what's been said. We don't like mid-year, early year. It's just clean and easy to do it all at once, a budget. The extenuating circumstance here is the change in leadership out there. And the data and information Carrie and Commissioner Baird, you've shared that is not in the memo. There's a lot of good stuff in here, don't get me wrong, but there's just more story to be told. And I think it warrants it. The concern is other elected officials, department heads are going to come in and use this as a foundation. Hey, the council's making mid-year decisions. And I would go back to them and say, absent a dramatic change in leadership that was, utter failure, then yeah, I'm not going to hear you out pretty much. But I'm supportive of what you're doing out there. We've just approved $100,000 improvements to go out there. And I'm in favor of this as it sits today. It is not in the form of a motion because I still think there's more discussion to be had, but I'm in favor of the request due to it being very extraordinary.
When everything happened at the shelter, there was 3 of us kind of left holding everything.
Right.
It was myself, the kennel manager, and the medical manager. And we have just now started putting the pieces back together. When the previous deputy director left, she was really the shelter manager and she kind of oversaw everything. She had that medical background. When she left, we kind of took her job and split it between the 2 of them so that we could hire a deputy director and that could oversee the animal control because it was just kind of not where we needed it to be. So everyone on this list has picked up all the pieces from when, it just kind of fell apart. And I'm not really sure how we kept it going, but I can tell you without the kennel manager, medical manager, we wouldn't have been able to.
Thank you.
Further discussion, or are we ready to entertain a motion?
Well, I would just like to mention that I agree with Jim on the timing. Of course, I agree with Rob and Ron. I like Ron's, the workup that he did. I think that's a good solution. I just hate to approve this as presented as like Ron, I'm sorry.
The bald guy, the
Rob
other
said-
bald guy, yeah, the other bald guy.
Yeah. And it just opens up a can of worms and, people change the job descriptions, et cetera. It just opens us up to a big mess. I understand the circumstances of this. I would be in favor of perhaps knocking your full-time open position down to part-time, getting it paid that way. Or I like Ron's solution too, is if we identify that under the circumstances that those folks should be at a certain point according to our pay structure that we agreed upon last year, then that would be a good solution also.
I agree with Pete, Ron's solution and using that open position money now to fund it.
Well, we gotta get a motion going.
So Ron, I know that the kennel manager you said was the 37,184. What was the coordinator medical manager? I thought it was the same amount.
Well, that was the one that I had the biggest problem with, of getting the numbers understood
Mhm.
of what it was before. Because before it was actually shelter coordinator. But and it said / medical manager. So if you take the shelter coordinator as the base, and I'm quite frankly on that one, I was just stumped on how to make it a comparable increase in salary.
It's a total, well, so what the shelter coordinator was supposed to do was bring in fosters and bring in volunteers, but she quit on us. Both the medical manager and the kennel manager, if people would respond, we're trying to get that
Right.
out there.
Yeah.
So they're bringing, that shelter coordinator position has really been split between the 2 of them to get fosters, to get volunteers at the shelter.
Well, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about as a starting point for the numbers. It was at 26,000, which is ridiculous. And I couldn't come to a base
Yeah.
to add on where it should be and then add on 4%. Because then when you went to the budget, it was still 26,000. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you use that, then the numbers are cattywampus as I see it. That was the one that I just simply couldn't come up. The other two were simple and as far as the numbers. But had that person got the increases that they were supposed to have gotten, then it would have been what the 2021 salary should have been plus 4% for 2022.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that number is. You understand?
Yeah, I understand.
So
And I
what,
wish I could tell you why they
well,
didn't put her. I don't really
no,
know.
but it's not a matter of why. I'm saying I don't know what that number is. I can come up with the other two numbers, 1 and 2, but I can't come up with a number for number 3. If it started at 26, then if you, what should it have been in 2021?
Yeah.
'Cause I couldn't find it. Do you know Brian? Brian Chance? No. In the meantime, while they're looking up that number, Les Barr's got it right there. You got it?
Barb Davis, County Coordinator. So when Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy done it in 2020, the internal salary for the shelter coordinator was 32,560. The kennel manager was 35,754. And the assistant, or the deputy director, I don't think that was on there, period. I think that position was changed at some point.
We just, I want to say last year,
Change that
Yeah.
title.
it was shelter manager. He had it changed to deputy director.
So those positions were actually lowered than what the salary study came back at.
Correct.
So
All right, so for the shelter coordinator was what, 30 what?
the shelter coordinator was 32,560 in 2020.
All
And
right,
the kennel manager was 35,754. So if you added the 750 plus the percent, what everyone else has received.
so that, okay, that makes it even more confusing because,
Thanks, Barb.
yeah, that's not the numbers that were on the budget.
I looked at the actual salary study is what I was using to come up with those,
Is that the internal or
the
external?
internal that we started with.
I was thinking that
Um,
table was-
How can we? It just scrambles my numbers a little bit and I don't want us to delay.
Anyone prepared to make a motion?
Well, I mean, I can make the motion, but the motion would be to take those numbers that Barb is suggesting. And then for 20, we simply stated it was adding what their 2021 salary was plus the 4%, taking them where they should have been this year. And I started with a different set of numbers than what she did, because I looked at what their existing salary was in the budget for this year.
I understand, but
Well, that's what I said. I don't want to.
for the sake of time, we need to
Yeah,
move forward.
A motion to approve the request 10A or 10 as presented and discussed, noting that this is an extraordinary circumstance. It's bringing this in front of us and noting that it is unusual in both timing and amounts and benchmarking. But due to the extraordinary circumstances, I am making that motion.
Got a motion? Is there
A second.
a motion by Rob Henderson, a second by Jonathan T. This one may need a roll call vote.
yes, I agree.
No. Aye.
Nay.
Yes.
Nay. Yeah, man, the ball's in your court.
Okay, but I'm gonna
It's just a
say.
yay or nay.
Oh, come on. Come on,
We
you
have
can't
we
do
have the
this.
ability to explain our vote. The simply is the fact, if we have to stay here for 2 hours to solve a problem, to resolve it with the people and treat them fairly, then there's no reason we shouldn't. Or if we need to schedule another meeting to do it, there's no reason we shouldn't. I don't like not acting on something because we've only been here an hour and 15 minutes. And I simply don't say that we should not act on it, but I believe there is an alternative that's reasonable and fair. And so this is a tough one because
You gotta be decisive.
I mean, you know, say no, I'm gonna say, correct me if I'm wrong, this can be brought up for a special meeting. If we act no against it. Okay, well, but this isn't the end of it. If I vote no, we can have another meeting about it. So we either stay tonight or
Okay,
we,
come on, Ron.
Well,
so the answer is,
Can I have a little bit of discussion here for just a second?
No, we got a motion.
I'm just gonna kind of let them off the hook. If the motion can be rescinded or whatever, if we take the salary of the officer that we haven't hired and we put that toward this, would that be something you would approve? And just move that from line item, or do we need it moved with approval? We can just transfer. Do we need to have that appropriated and approved, or can we just do that through the line item? Okay, so if you would be willing to approve the salary and we do it that way, and then that'll give us time to see what we can do with ARPA funds. And then this may not even be an issue till budget time.
Okay, I like that.
Would that, I don't know if there's a way we can stop all this, or you can just vote no and that takes care of that, and then we can go for a remotion.
okay, well, I'm going to vote no because I want it to come back to the council in a timely, quick manner for reconsideration. It is not done. It's not over with.
Okay. So motion fails. 4-3.
But I will get with you on those numbers.
Right. Okay. Does the council wish to entertain an additional motion on this topic?
You guys understand that the principle is the same, right? Transferring money, approving the salary at the number, at the level here, it was no different than what we just went through.
Right. It's in
Okay, all
perpetuity.
right, as long as we all understand that, wherever it's sourced.
Do we have
It's the
a
same
number
dollar.
or a description of the position that we're in a sense eliminating?
You know that.
There's enough there.
It's like 39,000 something. That's the line item I have not hired for yet.
Well, so I'm going to ask legal. We don't want to eliminate the position, but we just don't want to fill a position. Can we make that as part of the motion?
I guess, yeah, we'll need that position, especially as. the-
Next year?
Yes.
Or here's an alternative. We got several more minutes of presentations. And I would suggest that you could take these numbers of what I just suggested and come back with those, go in the room in there and you probably could come back with them with Barb. Don't you think, Barb? And we could address it in a very quick fashion later this evening on my motion.
Okay.
Is that possible, Barb? Okay,
I'll second that.
You making a motion to table?
yeah, I'll table it until the end of the meeting.
Okay, got a motion by Ron Deere, second by Pete to table this topic until the end of the meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Yeah.
There
No.
is one other thing I forgot to do. Just making it interesting.
Hold on just a second.
Okay.
So for the record, that last one, we have 2 no's, John T. and Rob. Okay, sorry.
I put it in the packet, but I forgot to put it on the agenda. And that's just a title change for a line item from deputy warden to community cat coordinator. Just need to, it's the same responsibility. And she just focuses more on the community cats. And so we wanted to change her title from deputy warden to community cat coordinator. It's line item 11362.
Just a tongue in cheek question here, but how's Wagner Irwin Shield going to comp a cat coordinator? I mean, I just, I don't know. I understand the need. It's you're aligning a title with a role, responsibility, but I don't know if that makes future council's jobs any more easy or more difficult with the title as cat coordinator. I guess it's all tabled though, right?
Right, yeah.
All right.
All table.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Thank you, Carrie.
next up, the elephant in the room. Wagner,
No one wants to get up.
right?
I guess you can either talk about the $20,000 now and it's a jumping proposal, or you can let the presentation go forward and then discuss the $20,000 additional appropriation in conjunction with the proposal.
I think we can move forward with 11. So the estimate came in somewhere between $15,640 and $18,400 to have Wagner Irwin and Shield do an updated salary study that would be presented to us in time to take it into consideration for this year's budget hearings. Is there any discussion?
Well, I just had a question. Typically in the past, what's been the plan for these salary studies? Is it every 2 years or is it
That
every?
was the first one that I've been a part of. That I don't know that we have not done one in the 7 years that I've been on the council.
Okay,
And that was
So I think-
2019, right?
Right, so I'm thinking if we do this, we kind of, which obviously there's several of us that this is our last term, but I think it would benefit the council to maybe make it reoccurring every 3 years. It's probably a long enough period of time that it needs to be reevaluated.
I think that was their recommendation also.
Yeah, the salary study's been very beneficial, not only to council, but I believe to our department heads and other elected officials. And I found it to be not easy to follow. That's not the right word, but you can glean information from it. So I give a recommendation for this, Jim. You have my support.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I did have a question, and it's something I wasn't aware of. There's a sentence that says on the second paragraph about with department restructures that are currently provided under the county's existing contract. What is that? So the ones we've been getting are being paid out of the commissioner's budget.
That's correct. And I think the long-term plan can do all of that with the council.
But it's not part of this 20,000.
Not necessarily. The proposal is an estimate of 15, 640 to 18.
And what travel, Addie, would be involved with this? I mean, is this pretty much a back office type of thing?
Yeah, this should be mostly, we should be able to complete this remotely unless you want us present at a meeting to present at, at the end results or anything like that. We've been doing most of our work remotely or via Zoom like we are tonight. So I don't anticipate much travel unless you request in-person meetings at any time.
Okay, now I had a question on the last statement that this timeline is for August or September. That's just almost too late. When you anticipate, Amy, that we'll be doing budget hearings, August, end of August, beginning of August, we'd have to have the information to be able to read it. So our review would be in August when we start having our meetings,
This timeline would be acceptable. We would have it by the time we meet.
but not September.
Right. Typically, our first budget hearing is the first week of September.
Well, that's what I'm saying, having the guidelines before, because the department heads won't have any chance to act on those guidelines. And we gave guidelines last year to the to the department heads and elected officials in June or July.
Amy, do you have a hard date in mind? An estimated date? For guidance, yes.
I mean, can't we, maybe just put it out a little while to get the results of the budget here? Survey. Is that something we can work with?
Well, that's what we're doing. We're gonna need it in time to be
Right.
able to, and the faster we approve this and get the funds appropriated, the faster they can start working on it. So I would think that we would need to do this tonight if we're gonna get this ball rolling.
Well, I agree. I'm just saying that September is a little, we need it in July.
Guidelines.
I completely understand we understand the timeline of budgets. It's just that right now you're coming in a little late. And we've got, I think, 12 or 13 projects ahead of yours. So that's why I gave the August, September timeline. And we'll do our very best to get it done as early as possible. But that's why we put that in there, so you would be aware of that. That's just where we are with the with our staffing and the number of projects we have coming in. It's been a little bit of a crazy year with these requests.
But we can change
Yes.
guidelines. Correct? She didn't like that.
Well, you change the guidelines. I think I'm speaking for Amy on this. You change the guidelines and you change the entire budget as it's being proposed by the department head. For example, the department head has been told the guideline with no change in the salary study is 4%. Then they put
They
together.
don't stick to it anyway, Ron.
Well, then we shouldn't be doing any of this if we don't believe that they're going to act on it, because I believe majority of departments did stick to it. There were a few that were out of the ordinary, but I'm speaking to what Amy's talking about, is that everybody would submit a budget based upon whatever guidelines we have given. And then that budget would then be presented, and then we'd have to go back and have them all redo it based upon the study, correct? You're shaking your head, correct? Let the record show Amy shaking her head. Yes.
Okay, so worst case scenario, we don't get it in time. We decide not to use it, push it off until next year.
Well, that's true.
We have the report in hand to.
That's true.
Can I make a motion?
Please.
I move to approve as presented.
Second. Got a motion by John Ed, a second by Rob Henderson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
I had one issue. It seemed like several elected officials and or department heads have made it not a complaint, but brought up the fact that there were a couple counties that were used in the comparison that were kind of way out there. Does anybody else recall that? So
Yes.
maybe we could convey that to our vendor here, that to give that a second look and make it perhaps a little more realistic on at least the high and the low.
Yeah, well, I'll take receptive to that information. What were the concerns?
Comparable counties and not counties that aren't similar.
Yeah, there was a couple counties, I think, at least at minimum, a high and a low that were kind of extreme for the comparison. And for you folks to kind of give that a second look and see if you could get some counties that are more appropriate in comparison to this county.
I think we're talking about representation according to population.
Okay, yeah, we usually use the similar size, and we look at who you're competing with, what your labor market is. So that does include some surrounding counties that you may be competing with for employees. But we can look at that again and take a closer look at those and look at the populations as well.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm confused. Both of these. I don't know. Okay, motion passed. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you again on this project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, item D, other business.
Get snappy.
Johnson County Public Library.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Littner, the Library Director for the Johnson County Public Library, and I'm here to share with you our 2021 year in review. With us tonight is Dan Mitchell, one of our board trustees. Kirk Bixler had a meeting at 7 o'clock, so he was here for a moment and popped out. But just want to share with you, we had a very exciting and productive 2021. We're going to share a slideshow with a project that took up the majority of our 2021 year. This is a March groundbreaking for the new Clark Pleasant branch that's on US 31 and Clearwater Boulevard. And we did a signing of the last beam. And as the luck of our construction project has, it's actually an exposed beam in the children's department. So families can look up and see if their name is on the two sides that's visible. Here's about 7 months into the construction project. We took some area stakeholders around for a tour. And then I just reminded you what the old Clark Pleasant branch looked like, which was filled to capacity or over to capacity, sometimes programs, the children's department that would fit only maybe 2-3 families at the most. And our new branch opened on March the 5th. That's a dusk view of it. And I'm happy to say it is just booming with activity. In the first 2 weeks, there's the ribbon cutting. In the first 2 weeks, we have made over 200 new library cards, and that's a normal month. We make 63. And so in 2 weeks, we've just booming with new patrons, lots of people from the neighborhood coming in that have never used the library since they lived in Johnson County. We also have a robotics learning lab to help people of all ages learn about STEM careers and also about advanced manufacturing in our county. The STEAM equipment and all the supplies for programs were fundraised for by private dollars. Our foundation raised $300,000 for special projects, which include a nature trail, 10 laps around the library. You've got a mile, and then additional landscaping. We also have public art that was paid for with private dollars. And we also have a quiet reading room for adults because, you know, you still want it quiet when you're reading a book. So we have that at the new location. And then we have picture of the new adult learning center at the bottom left-hand corner. We moved that from downtown Franklin, and any adult in Johnson County who needs to have some basic education skills building for maybe their high school equivalency or are learning English as a second language, you can come to the Clark Pleasant branch now for instruction on that or free tutoring. And our next slide is again, really the reason we're doing this is to really uplift the families in Clark and Pleasant Townships, and indeed everybody in Johnson County benefits from it. So here's our old children's department, and the next slide is a video picture, and then we have a video of the opening day in the children's department. We added 7,000 new library books for children and some additional DVDs because interestingly, they still check out a lot at the library. But here's our opening day in the new children's department. You see just lots of fun, lots of learning going on. For interest in saving time, if you look at your 2021 year in review, I was going to share some highlights, but you can just read it on your own. We did lots of innovative new programs in 2021, and we continue to do so every year. Also, just want to share with you some upcoming programs of interest. On April the 9th, we will have an American flag dedication ceremony that will be dedicated to all our veterans in Johnson County and anyone serving in the armed forces at the new Clark Pleasant branch. We're partnering with Purdue Extension at the Trafalgar branch, and we'll be watching chicks hatching on April 20th. And April 21st and 26th, we're partnering with the Johnson County Recycling District on biodiverse gardening in Johnson County. On May 20th, you can stop by the White River branch and write a thank you letter to someone serving in the armed forces. May 21st, and also several other dates, the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra will be doing teddy bear concerts. And on June 18th, we're partnering with the Johnson County Museum of History, and we'll have a reenactor playing our former governor, Paul V. McNutt. So that's our update, and hope you have a moment to look over the infographic for our successes in 2021. And I'm here if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Lisa. Looks good.
All right. I hope you didn't stop by the branch if you haven't made it there yet. Thanks.
That's a good comment. John and I were at the grand opening. It's an amazing facility.
Right. Next, we have the presentation from Sunoco for the personal property tax abatement.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Luke. I'm the plant manager at Sunoco. That is actually Sunoco Flexible Packaging in Edinburgh, Indiana. We are headquartered out of Hartsville, South Carolina. Company's been around in existence for over 120 years, so we're very proud of that. Next slide, please. I'll try and be brief. I know it's been a long meeting. So this is a picture looking west from US 31 of our operations. The plan actually began operations in 1956 and 1957. It has changed hands several times since that period. And Sunoco acquired it in 1995, and it was renamed Sunoco Flexible Packaging at that time. The size of our main plant is about 164,000 square feet. And we also lease/rent some storage space across US 31 from Columbus Warehouse to the tune of about 100,000 square feet. As with any business, we like to talk about our personnel, so I'll take a few minutes to talk about them. Next slide, please. Here's our personnel at a glance. So we, right now we have a total employee count of hourly 123 with 21 salaried people. Hourly employees represented by a union is currently 117 of those 123. And in the future, we predict that to be about 127 after we hopefully get everything approved with our expansion. 44 years is our average age of our hourly personnel, with 10.3 years being the duration of service. Now that has came down dramatically over the last 3 to 4 years. And of course, with the onset of COVID, that has really hit us in the knees as well. Starting pay rate for our hourly production personnel, about $20 an hour. And for our maintenance personnel, it's right around $30 an hour. Other advantages, we have shift premiums on every shift. And then you see the lower right-hand box, weekend premium. Saturday, we pay 1.5 times the normal rate of pay. And then on Sunday, that is 2. And that is part of their normal operating schedule. So it's not like we have Monday through Friday, and then they work the weekends to get that. That is a normal operational schedule. So we're a 7-day-a-week operation. Again, more items about our personnel. We've been 758 days without a recordable incident and 2,578 days without a lost time accident. So we're very proud of our safety history and the work that we do with our employee safety. In fact, it's easier for me to explain why we missed a income month as opposed to an accident in our plant. So it just shows you the commitment of our company to our employees. 35% of our employees have less than 1 year of tenure, and 61% have less than 10 years. And again, I mentioned on the previous slide, this has been a shift down for us because over the years, we've been that place where 25, 30, 35-year employees have really been our average. We have recently had an employee that retired with 47 years of experience. Recently, we've had to direct hire into higher level positions. And this has been the new norm for us for about the last 18 months. And what I mean by that is typically to get to a higher level position, it would take 10 to 12 to 15 years just to acquire that as you work your way up. And with the struggle of the job market, we've actually had to direct hire right into those positions of higher authority. Very difficult on the training aspect. And this will be important as we talk about this new project. If we always think about whether or not we're doing something right, nearly 70% of our voluntary resignations result in a request or inquiry to return to Sunoco. So somebody leaves and they think that pasture may be a little bit greener on the other side. About approximately 70% of those people call back and see if they can come back to work for Sunoco. So talking about the plant, manufacturing capabilities. This is a direct evidence of a plant that's been there since the mid-1950s, where it's been added on over and over. Over the years, a lot of changes have been made throughout the internals of the plant to optimize the flow of materials. But where that red box is down at the bottom of the screen, the top of this is looking east. But the north-south box, long red box, we'll bring that up here in just a few moments. But it's a large plant, a lot of equipment, a lot of things going on within our plant. Next slide, please. We have 2 presses, and we call these rotogravure presses. And the reason we call it rotogravure because it's very similar to a old printing press for paper. So these cylinders are round, of course, in nature. And as you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, that's where the raw material comes in and it goes through different stations. This press has actually 11 stations for different colors, different activities that we do to the structure. We can add another layer or another laminate on the way through. So you see that this is an example of one of our rotogravure presses. We have 2 of them. And unfortunately, this would be the one that will be retired if our project goes forward and is approved. And if you have any questions, do not feel hesitant to ask me. Our project and impacts. So now we're looking from an overhead, and the top of this slide is north. I made mention of the red part of that plant. That is just to the right of the blue shaded area.
The blue shaded area would be the new building housing 2 new pieces of equipment onto our plant. The blue shaded area is approximately 21,000 square feet. It is going over an existing paved area, and it will be the future of the Edinburgh plant for many years to come. So this is a little bit about the project. This consists of a 10-color press, triplex laminator, an additional thermal oxidizer, and a new building. The new building, of course, being shaded blue. The building will be sourced locally. Civil work to be completed by local contractors. Main equipment being quoted and purchased from Europe. We have 3 vendors in Europe. Typically, that's where this equipment is manufactured. The new equipment's technology will reduce what I like to call the art of printing. And what I mean by that, I said earlier that we lost a lot of our higher tenure people. And with that, that becomes the art or the learnings of what we do in the printing process. The technology that's associated with these new pieces of equipment actually takes a lot of the work out of the hands of the operator. So it's more load the machine, start, and all the things that the experienced operators would have to do in the past, tweaking and tuning and making this move here. The machine does it by itself. So the new technology will be advantageous for Edinburgh, especially with the lower experienced employees, if I may, as they come into the plant. Efficiencies will improve dramatically, less waste and downtime. And the new equipment will allow Edinburgh to produce a completely recyclable product developed in-house and being pushed by our customers, of course. Right now, the current technology that we employ, we do not have enough control on the machine itself to produce these higher end products that would be considered 100% recyclable. We need very, very tight tension control to be able to do this as the material moves through the press. And we cannot do that right now with the current technology we have in place. So I'm looking at the annual impact of just our plant. We have an annual plant compensation to all of our employees of greater than $13 million. Warehousing, $750,000 annually. Maintenance expenses, $1.2 million. And a lot of that is for machine shops in the local area. Local contract services, over $1 million. Property tax, $200,000. And we do have contributions to the Edinburgh schools. And we often sponsor local sports teams. So everybody asks, well, I always drive by that building, what do you do, right? Some people say Sunoco, they think about the oil company. This plant has been very important in the advent for Mondelez or Nabisco. In 2006, we were the first plant to come out with the resealable Oreo packages. So those packages that you open from the top and reseal, that was made in Edinburgh, Indiana, developed and made in Edinburgh, Indiana. We are still the only company in the world that does that, but we have sourced out some of this to our Waco, Texas facility since Mondelez has reduced capacity in their Chicago bakery and moved it to Monterrey, Mexico.
Well, I appreciate you doing that.
I knew I thought I'd get a little criticism because
You did bring Oreo cookie, correct?
no, but if you come by, we can supply that.
Oh, okay.
So what comes out of the Edinburgh plant when we ship it is a flat roll stock. We do not form it. So we do business for Mars, which is all their M&M products. We do work with the pharmaceutical industry. We do a lot of work with Nabisco, or what their name is now, Mondelez International. We do all the Hall's cough drops in the world. And oh, by the way, outside the United States, Hall's cough drops are thought of as a candy as opposed to a cough drop. I was surprised when I came to work for this company how much product we actually produce for the world, but it's a tremendous amount. We have 7 plants in North America, just like the plant in Edinburgh. And of course, we are always competing internally with our own sister plants, if I may. We compete with them for business. We compete with them for capital. We have ran this equipment for many years. These are some of the oldest pieces of equipment in terms of presses within the company. But that was out of necessity too, because our customer gained 25% market share when we made the snack and sealers and sealable products. And we did not have time to do much else. So this is a big advent for the Edinburgh plant. It will secure the Edinburgh plant in its place for the next 20 years. And that's what we're looking forward to.
It's Michael, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Michael, thank you for attending tonight. And Jim, is it okay if I?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. So background on how this got to us tonight. The lady who signed the application, Nikki Elmore, is their state tax manager. She is out of South Carolina.
That's correct.
And then Pamela Wagner, I believe, is her associate. They contacted Aspire. Actually, they started out down at Edinburgh, and this isn't unincorporated. So they refer to Aspire. Aspire reached out to myself, and then we are looped in Sheena. So that's how we got from there to here. The request initially was presented as a 10-year abatement, both personal and real. And after discussion with Nikki and Pamela, and giving them a little insight about our most recent applications, that being Ellipsis and Umbarger, that they modified their request and reduced the abatement periods to 7 years respectively, which I personally feel is more in line with where we are. The mindset, having been on city council in Franklin, and we see these quite often, it's about job creation generally, but this is about job retention. And Nikki and Pamela also stressed what Michael just said, is there's competition amongst other locations for this capital expansion, capital improvement, and that this abatement could weigh heavily in the decision for it to occur here in Edinburgh. So you saw some pretty impressive numbers up there with respect to payroll. They lease space across the street, which is again going back into the local economy. Just to clarify, all the proposed improvements are located at this location you own, correct? On the west side of.
Correct.
Yep. And to your knowledge, all the improvements, all the equipment being purchased is eligible for abatement, I believe. Yeah. So the oxidizer is the other thing I wanted to bring out. My understanding, talking with Nikki and Pamela, and I'm sure you can expand on this, is that that's a more green friendly production or enhancement, I should say, to emissions. If you wanted to expand on, I felt that was an important component.
Yes, we currently have 2 regenerative thermal oxidizers on our plant site. We will be bringing in a 3rd one under this project, under the proposal, to give us more capacity to, of course, keep the volatiles, which would be alcohol. All of our inks are alcohol based. Some of them are food grade based. And but when they dry, they will give off some volatility of alcohol, and so we will treat them through those thermal oxidizers. The 3rd one will give us more capacity, so we don't have to change things around when we need to shut down in PM1. So that will give us more capacity in the future.
Got it. Thank you. I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask how many of your employees are residents of Johnson County?
That's, I would have to get back to you on that because we have a pretty good distribution between Johnson, Bartholomew, and Shelby County as well.
Mainly for you, Rob, with your prior leadership. Like I said, you haven't had a lot of these in the county, and those of us have had fairly extensive experience, and it seems totally different. So what have you used as your primary pillars of what you look for in a tax abatement at the county level?
Yeah. So in my 7 years here, we've had Ellipsis, which was purely a real estate abatement request. And then the Umbarger comprised real estate and personal property. With that, it was a significant investment. It was a relocation of a homegrown business with not only retention of jobs, but a promise for future jobs. So we don't have much here, to compare to, Ron. Understand the question, but it's.
So you don't have any kind of a written policy or anything?
No, sir, we don't. No, don't anticipate one.
Rob, I don't know who's doing the negotiating here, but I think that outfit in the up on 135, I think their abatement was more to a 3 to 5 year. I mean, have we explored the possibility of a 5-year abatement as opposed to a 7? I mean, who's doing the
Yeah.
negotiating here?
So no negotiation. It just was, I shared with them my personal opinion and I shared with them the ellipsis story. That's the group you just referenced. And I shared with them the embargo story. And then when they revised their application to reflect the 7 years.
Is it your kind of impression that a 5-year abatement would not be to their advantage and we might lose them as a?
I did not get that impression in speaking with Nikki at all. And I would defer certainly to Michael on any, tweaking of it at this point, but no, it was just relaying of information and not a negotiation.
I see.
And what are we doing tonight and what happens after tonight?
Tonight's just a discussion. We're not set to take a vote tonight.
I mean, what happens after they go back and they do we have, Sheena, what,
Well, tonight was a chance for Mike to come in and give an explanation of the project. I don't think a lot of us knew about enterprise, so that was not key for that. I also thought if you had questions, like you want to add, go back and research to see what out. The next step would be a resolution declaring an economic revitalization area and public hearing. It'll take a couple more months.
I think, I'm kind of in line with Pete. I don't know primarily because there's no jobs added.
I believe there's going to be at least 10 added.
Okay.
And depending on when we have logistics and product flow throughout the facility, we may have to add a couple more forklift operators to handle that volume of material.
I think with the scope though, I don't know that 7 years is all that advantageous.
Now, is this the biggest facility you guys have, or one of the other 7? Are they larger, smaller?
We have 7 locations. As I said, we purchased a facility up near in Chicago 2 years ago, and they have more capacity than we do in terms of sales, raw sales. We do have that. We do have capacity to get up to that level or close to that level. People in Hartsville have mentioned to me that they would like to make this plant a super plant at some point in time, rather than having all these satellite locations, but they would want to focus it here because we've got some pretty technically savvy people at this plant here to support the needs. So again, we would like to continue to build it out. We have roughly 24 acres available. I know several layers up from me has made a comment that you guys have plenty of ground out there to expand if necessary. So I can't commit to any of that right now, but that's what my insight would like to be. Of course, I'm selfish for Edinburgh.
Hey, Mike, now Sunoco is very close to the Bartholomew County line, and when it comes to having this facility built, certainly it'll be open up to businesses outside of Johnson County, but will Johnson County contractors be strongly encouraged to, I mean, you know what I'm saying? We would, of course, we would like Johnson County vendors, contractors to build this thing. Could you comment on that?
We will do everything we can to identify the contractors in Johnson County. I will commit that to you. Obviously, I have rules in terms of quoting on larger projects to be able to take the best offer that we can evaluate. I will mention to you right across the street, though, the Columbus warehouse They were direct with them.
Right.
So, yeah, we would like to keep everything as much as we can locally, and I will say in Johnson County as well.
Thank you so much.
Rob, would it, and speaking to Pete's question, we first received paperwork on 10, then we received it on 7. So perhaps, we could receive it on 5, but then they can't make a dual application. They have to make a specific application for something. 7, the 7 is what you suggested to them, but if we would simply delay it if we asked for an analysis for 5.
Well, I suppose, yes, in the way there's no action tonight. So it's a presentation of data. So in that, this spreadsheet that you see here, this analysis is literally a 2-minute mock-up inside the application. But so no, I don't think there'd be a delay. I did mention to Nikki, as was with the ellipsis deal, I think they had asked for 7 and we ended up going 3 or 5 and went 3, something like that. So there can be, or at least there's a precedent of negotiation during the actual application process.
But then from an information standpoint, they then brought back 7 and 5. And then the council said, oh, go ahead with 5, or how did you give them a final decision of how to proceed?
It was the council's desire to go to counter their request. And it was done that night.
And they went through the process of being declared economic development area.
Yes, they absolutely did that. I can't remember exactly how we got to the lower number of years, but I would say that's really what the information that you need for that decision is just the amount of the percentage you're abating each year. You wouldn't necessarily need the actual calculation.
Yeah.
But it impacts the total tax abatement. Yeah.
Mike, I want to compliment you first on your safety. Jim pointed out something to me and I spoke up when we talked about adding employees. Are you adding employees?
Yes.
You did so in your presentation, but on the forms, if you could correct that, please.
Okay.
Going forward.
I did see those inconsistencies today, and I'll talk to Nikki and others to make sure those two are aligned.
And if you add the employees, you have to add them or you can be found not in substantial compliance. So.
Yeah. So I would like to say that those are conservative values that we're putting out there. So it may be a couple above that. So I was very conservative.
If what I'm hearing, and I know it's what I would like to see, I would like to see another application submitted for 5%. Sorry, a 5-year, it's getting late, abatement. I'm not comfortable with the scope of this project going 7 years. But once again, this isn't up for a vote tonight. It shouldn't be too hard to put that together for to be presented at our next meeting.
Yeah. I do want to thank you for coming, and I appreciate your investment in the community and staying here with your process.
Yeah, that's what we're pushing for. As I mentioned, that we have our sister plants that are our internal competition. I'm always concerned about everything across the board when it comes to our plant. We do have a couple of our facilities, one in Waco, Texas, and one in Morristown, Tennessee, that are in pretty competitive areas in terms of community friendly for businesses. So I'm always cognizant of that, and that's probably why some of the applications were turned in the way they were, just to give us that little bit of an edge against the 2 other plants that are really our direct competition for internal competition.
Are they looking to expand their facilities?
The company's actually looking at expanding where the opportunities are. For several years, we would go in and take one of these presses that's 25 years old, and we would go put $750,000, $800,000 into it. to revamp all of the electronics and the control systems because those are sometimes they can become obsolete. And then what you find is you have new controls on a press that's 20 to 22 years old, right? And so you don't get the efficiency gains that you would have gotten if you would have invested in something new. So by the time you invest the money in the learning curve to come up to speed, now you're approaching, 30% of the cost of a new piece of equipment. So our company is looking at those. In fact, our sister plant down in Morristown is asking for X number of dollars. They want to do an upgrade, and everybody's standing around saying, well, why would you want to do an upgrade of the electronics only? So yes, they're always looking to grow, and they've gotten on this different path of installing new capacity, new technology, as opposed to reinvesting in the older dated technology, if I may. So
I guess my question is, are they, other facilities looking to do the same thing and they're trying to figure out which would be best or where they get the best deal?
they will always be doing that. Yes. We have a lot of thresholds that we always have to surpass to get to these levels. And, I'm always being given the pep talks, and they made a comment, well, this could go to Morristown, Tennessee, which didn't make me too happy, but that's a challenge.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
So Michael, our next meeting is Monday, April 11th, I believe, 99% sure it's the second Monday in April. So if you, Nikki, or Pamela would like to have a follow-up, just reach out to me.
Very well.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Item E, old and new business, approval of Johnson County Court Services Agreement.
Welcome.
Good evening.
Hello.
Randy Kirkendall, Court Administrator. I'm sure you've all read the court services agreement that's before you. I'll answer any questions that you have. But in a nutshell, we are, through a collaborative effort, organizing a court services department. I think you have this. Do you have this? Organizational chart. Aligning.
I don't think we do.
Community, you don't?
This email.
Yeah, it was in an email. That
Okay.
There's some new organization going on, aligning community corrections in a similar fashion to that of probation, so that the line of command, if you will, goes under the courts. This was a directive of the Community Corrections Advisory Board last spring. So several people have been working on this since then. The commissioners approved this agreement this morning. Is before you today, not as a direct member of the agreement. The real members of the agreement are more of the players in this game, but we felt that you needed to be aware of this since you will be approving all of the budgets, and in the spirit of making sure everyone knew what was going on, we added you as a party to this agreement. I'll answer specific questions that you have. It's been a labor of love for Sheena and others. As you heard earlier in the meeting this evening, also for probation, who's really bearing the workload of taking this department on.
So I'm sure this new program will be more efficient. Will there be cost savings?
I can't answer that question because we are still, I say we very loosely because I'm not really doing it. Angela, if you can answer those questions. uncovering things in that building that bills that we didn't know about, bills that haven't been paid, improvements that are necessary to be made. So I can't answer that with any sort of, I can't answer that. Going forward, I can tell you that the two departments do have duplicate efforts. In the grand scheme of the plan, it's to make sure that we eliminate those duplicate efforts. As you heard earlier, the supervisor, that's just one example, a supervisor for the field officers. Having two sets of field officers in two different departments, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. So having those efforts combined, we're hoping that by having the efficiency of this, that we'll be able to, maybe the case managers aren't having to do the same things that probation officers are doing. Maybe if we can get the work release facility operating at capacity, then we're able to increase the project income there. So I think in the long run, and that run, that might be a marathon and not a 5K. So in the long run, that's the goal. And I think that we can definitely get there.
As you explained it to me, that this is an organizational, and John can speak to it more specifically, but it's an organizational realignment to make it functional. Is that correct, John?
In the works, that's all I can say right
Polishing the diamond.
now. More to be said later.
I would entertain a motion for approval.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ron Deere, second by Pete. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And one abstain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've handled number 2. So we are back to the animal shelter.
We're pulling our way along.
Do what?
Cross your fingers.
Oh, okay.
I'll move to approve as presented.
Second. Motion by John Ed, second by John T. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
On the third one.
Both Johns.
Second by me. Stay with us, Amy. We're moving fast. Unanimous consent.
Whatever we voted on, it was unanimous.
Okay,
We're back.
you have some numbers for us?
We do. So we calculated, kind of went with what Ron said. And took what it was originally, the internal was originally back, what, in 2018, I think? 2020. And then we did the added 750 and times 4%. Okay. We came up with each one. So start this way. The deputy director position, which was the first one on the list, it would be 45,238. Which for the rest of the year, that would be $1,820. The next one, which is kennel manager, the total would be 37,964. With a total for the year of 4,943. And the shelter coordinator, 34,642. with a total of 6,315 for the year.
The last one was medical.
Yeah, sorry, medical. And then the total for all of those is $13,078. And then we would take that out of our line item 11364, which is a deputy warden position that we have not hired for.
And the intent would be that they let the items fall where they may in the salary study.
Correct.
Got discussion. I'll make a motion so we can have discussion for deputy 4 to 5,238, kennel manager 37,964, and the medical, what do they call it? Medical what?
Manager.
Medical manager 34,642 for discussion.
Is FICA and perf gonna have to be adjusted?
It would be lower, yes.
Okay.
And that's to come out of
117.
position.
Out of that open position. I'm sorry, and
Yes,
funding.
we
out of
have
the
enough
open.
money in there to take that out of there as well.
Okay. That's for the the remainder of the year.
Correct.
Got a motion? Sorry, go ahead.
One other thing that she would like to do, according to Wagner Irwin Shealy, there was a position that had the title change from deputy warden to the
Community cat coordinator.
community cat coordinator. It was not on her letter, but she would request if you would consider that position. She still does like what a deputy warden does, goes out and catches the cats and
Does hoarding, goes out with officers to hoarding situations. It's just she does the cat portion of it. So if we get a call in, we send her out to do all the cat stuff.
Is this just a title change?
Correct.
All right. Should we do it as a separate motion, Sheena, or as one?
Let's do it as one.
Okay. And the title change from what?
a deputy
Warden
warden.
to community cat coordinator. I know it's a mouthful.
CCK.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
that's my motion.
yes. And the account number for that, the line item is 11362.
Got a motion by Ron. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by John T. All those in favor?
I
Aye.
thought there would be discussion. I thought you did it for discussion.
Well, I did. I mean, normally there's discussion, but everybody wants to get out of here. So,
No, nothing to do with it. No,
no, I made a motion. It was second, and then we normally have discussion, but
Okay,
yeah.
so all those in favor, we have ayes, nay?
Nope. Nay.
Okay,
I was supportive of your original request, remain so. Thank you. Appreciate your work. Yeah.
okay, motion passes. 2 nays with John Ed and Rob Henderson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Was Luke, these poor guys have been, Luke's pulling his update.
Luke's not on the agenda.
Old business. Old.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right.
he's back.
He's always last, so he's old. Just puts himself under old.
Thank you. Luke Maston, Highway Supervisor. I promise this will be very short. You were recently forwarded the capital needs report for road and bridge needs. I know that you've not had time to go through with it yet. So not anticipating any discussion here. Just wanted to very quickly touch on essentially a lot of need from a lot of different facing us from a lot of different areas. Those are all highlighted in the report as you go through it. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me in the interim. I think the main driving factor in the report, if you don't gather anything else out of it, is we've reached a point where our normal highway funds are committed to projects that are already underway. So in order to pursue new capital projects, we'll either need to continue to take those out of our highway funds to the detriment of our annual work program, or we'll need to identify other alternative funding sources.
Could we get a cash flow from you by year?
Sure. Yeah.
And Luke, this, the number, staggering number for us to get up, there's different levels, I know, for us to get to priority 1 to priority 2s, but just so we hear that number.
So yes, the end result of the report, and this factors in road work needed due to I-69, road work needed longer term to make safety and capacity improvements to more of our rural roads. Also includes addressing our growing concrete neighborhood street issue, and as well as trying to keep up with our bridge inspection recommendations for replacement and rehabilitations. That grand total for all of those in the report was $382 million that is not currently funded with our highway funds.
And that's 2-year.
It varies by which of those items you're talking about. So the concrete streets was a 1 to 10 year time frame based on some analysis that we did last year. The other projects, as far as the report is concerned, are listed as not programmed, as in we've not identified funding for them. So we could certainly come up with some funding scenarios, but ultimately how we prioritize which projects, there's just so many to address, and it would be largely dependent upon what the anticipated revenue source is for those projects.
And you informed me that there's one revenue source that nobody knows, but we all heard about it, and that's what's going to come down from the infrastructure bills that may, I mean, how much the state's going to take and how much we're going to end up with. And you've got no information on that yet, correct?
Not anything that would be solid enough to count on. And but the other thing to keep in mind is that those are competitive funding sources as well. So that's one of certainly a lot of benefit, and we should always continue to pursue state and federal funding grants. From a planning standpoint and a budgeting standpoint, having such a large amount of money that essentially we need to build those capital projects, it makes having it not guaranteed makes it very difficult to try to plan those projects out into the future.
So how are you going to come to us at the next meeting? Because we need to get rolling on this, right?
If there's, after you review the report, obviously, as I mentioned, if you have questions, feel free to reach out. If there's any additional data you would like to see at the next meeting, I'm happy to put that together as well. Again, I know you've not had time to go through the report at this point, but I wanted to make sure it was presented to you and just do a quick overview with honestly some additional discussion probably planned for future meetings. So yes, if there's anything as you review it, any additional data you'd like to see, just let me know and we can put it together.
I'll be the elephant in the room. I mean, $382 million. We can't come close to that.
No.
We can't come close to probably any of these projects.
No, but I think the important thing, John, is knowing we need to not look at that number, because you can take any year and add all those things up and it's going to be pretty big.
Right.
If it's over 5 years. So what we need to know is what is priority, how much is it going to be, and how long is it going to take? Because that's how we're going to have to be able to fund this.
Right. But I mean, this can's been kicked down the road.
Exactly.
That's why the number's so big. Yeah.
Right. I mean, nobody, the previous councils, nobody has stepped up to the plate and say, we all say the roads are crap in the county and we need to fix them, but nobody's ever done anything. I think, look at a funding source to fund this, to get this started. There's roads all over this county that are just falling apart. And all they do is chip seal, patch, or do nothing. And he doesn't have the funding source to get any of these projects started or done.
What about the ARPA funds?
I don't think ARPA can be used for that.
Can't be used for highway.
The calculation now is, your lost revenue could always be used for any governmental purpose. Right now, they changed in the final rule to allow for 10 million kind of standard allowance or your lost revenue, whichever is higher. I think the lost revenue will probably come in a little bit higher, but still, that's a pretty small pot. I think there are some other things that are going to come in that.
Yeah.
There's a little bit.
If I could, the ARPA, it comes down to us, they, from those above, gave us this money, and it's not like it's freewheeling money that we can do anything with. There are very limited scopes of work that we can apply that to, that we should, because those opportunities are not going to come around again. And I could be specific here, but I won't, because it,
Yeah, but even if you used every dime of the ARPA funds, we're still
Oh, yeah.
at 10% of
yeah, it's not going to
the
matter.
proposed project cost.
So that was my point is,
Are we gonna be a council that kicks the can down the road, or are we gonna try to be proactive and, well, not proactive, we're still being reactive, but help the highway department to fix fix these roads?
I'm with you, John.
Me too.
I mean,
So come up with a solution before the next meeting.
Yeah.
that's not his job to come up with a solution. Fix it.
Recommendation sources of funding, how's that?
We can definitely run some different scenarios. If we have some ideas of what, what types or levels of potential additional funding resources we might have, that makes that easier. And keep in mind, the report is a needs report, right? It's identifying the need, and it's a staggering number. Obviously, there's prioritization that goes into this. We have some needs that are a lot more pressing in the short term, but there are also needs like the bridge projects that were mentioned, or the rural road improvements in the county. We can't let those fall off the radar, but those aren't necessarily the highest priority projects that need to be done right now. So,
Well, and it's tough, but we got to have that discussion, ladies and gentlemen, that a balanced budget is one thing, but if we have to spend an extra 2 million or whatever for the next 5 years, that makes doing nothing doesn't accomplish anything. Doing something accomplishes something. And, and if it means that we're not going to have a balanced budget because we're going to take whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's one of the ways it can be addressed. I
Well,
mean,
here's the thing, we've got options for funding. It's a matter of which path we want to take.
Right.
As a body up here. And unfortunately, one of the options is a 3-letter word that nobody likes, and it quite honestly is really bad timing because of the rate of inflation and the way the economy is heading right now. But yeah, I think, we've got to start having these tough discussions on how we're going to do it. We're not going to be able to do it all at once. We've got to prioritize and come up with a game plan, but
We have to come up with a funding source. We don't need to put a Band-Aid on a bleeding artery.
Right.
You're right.
I don't
The
think.
3-letter word tax, nobody likes it.
I think
It's never
everybody up here
appropriate
knows
time,
which direction
but
we're
it needs
going.
to be discussed.
I think we need to run the numbers. I think Rob is in the process of working on some of that for these options to see what these revenue paths will generate. And then we can go from there. But tonight, we don't have any of that in front of us. I think we all agree that we have to do something and we need to start looking at our options, but.
is lit one of those?
Yes.
It's not just jail, and I mean, it's a general lit.
That's complicated, but yes, involves moving money around.
100 million over the next, how many years? The report you gave us.
Yeah.
100 million over the next 15.
Yeah, but there are also correctional needs that are coming forward too. So I think, the objective tonight was to get this on the radar. I don't know that we're going to come up with a solution tonight. We need numbers in front of us. And then we can, as a body, move forward and try to make the best decision.
Given the proper information.
Correct.
And I don't know that crap is the word that I would have used to describe the road conditions.
Oh, well.
Maybe something a little more diplomatic.
Severely dysfunctional.
We're not talking about the department. We're talking.
Oh,
about- Thank you for your
You can
time.
make a better presentation. How's it?
I appreciate your time. Again, not to get too far into the details, but if you have questions between now and the next meeting, or there's data that you'd like to see, just let us know.
Thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
Thanks, Luke.
Thanks, Luke.
With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Or adjourned.
I came in front of